What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast with Cass, Chris, and Sean. What's going on, fellas?
What's good? What's good?
All right. Could be better.
It was one better, but hey.
It was one of those things. We talked about it last year. Like, you know, when your team loses that 1 o'clock slot, you just sitting there just like, man, fuck, man. like fuck these teams.
It definitely depends on how you lose too.
Yeah.
How you lose too, but sometimes you get a loss and it's like, damn, like, we could have got it, but it was like a good ass game or something, like.
Yeah.
Or it was just one of them ones where you just like, bro, fuck this game. Like, nah. But, we'll get into a little bit of that. It's also, I guess, rivalry week for y'all as the Falcons and Eagles play on Monday Night Football this upcoming week. But, we'll get into that a little bit later. But, kind of as Cass led off with, we did just finally have the first week of the NFL season, kind of like we talked about a little bit last week. And, we said that the NFL gave us, a great prime time, I guess, slot of games from Thursday, Friday, Monday, and then Sunday night. And I mean, I guess maybe the Monday night not particularly wasn't back and forth, but all the rest of the games were all close games, all came down to the last second. Obviously, the Lions and the Rams went into overtime as well. But a great slate of games, great week of games. Wednesday, it's a couple days later, so I got to say Wednesday overreaction. What you guys got? What is your feedback? What you guys think of the first week of the NFL?
Man, sloppy play. I mean, but it expected. I mean, again, you talk about teams that have new quarterbacks, new coordinators, not really playing in the preseason games. It's bound to happen. So I'm not gonna look too down on most of the quarterback play, but I mean, it was some good playmaking plays that was made this weekend that I enjoyed. But overall, I mean, you overreact, but then you got to think about it's week one. Let me dial it back a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It seems like lately week one has just been like an extension of the preseason, basically. Like you said, the quarterback play in week one is not good most of the time. I think I saw a stat. I should have saved it, but it was like the amount of touchdowns thrown by a quarterback from like 2016 or 17, 18 to now, or it's like steadily decreasing. It's like the quarterback play is in this first week is just not good. But it was good to have football back in general. I guess my big reaction, I guess it's not an overreaction, but like what I came away with was give these rookies time. They all look bad. So, I mean, there's, and I don't think they'll all be bad, but give them time. Give them time. It's all right. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, and it kind of goes because I feel like a lot of the rookies, especially over the past few years, have kind of come on the scene. Aside from, focusing on the quarterbacks here. Aside from the Desmond Ridder, Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett class, where it just seems like all those quarterbacks, except for surprisingly Brock Purdy, are butt.
Yeah.
But it seems like a lot of the quarterbacks, and I mean C.J. Stroud kind of started off a little rough last year against the Ravens, but for the most part, they've all kind of come on the scene and done a little something. So it was a little surprising to me to see, Caleb not even break 100 yards after everybody said that they were going to be, top 10 team in the playoff team. We'll see how that goes. But, it was good to see, Aaron Rodgers back in action. I think that was actually one of my favorite things of the weekend. A lot of people have their issues personally, I guess, with Aaron Rodgers, but, just as a football player, him finally getting out there Monday, and then when that first drive or the first full drive that he actually got, where they went down and score, I mean, it was just nice to see him back out there playing and kind of giving you a little bit nostalgia of some of the quarterbacks, the Peytons and Tom Brady's that are no more in this league. But then also, kind of like you guys said, normally we typically see where the offense is a little bit more ahead of pace of where they're supposed to be by midseason than the defenses. And it seems like at the beginning of this year, it's been a little bit of the opposite. We saw a game with the Titans and the Bears that it was completely turned and completely flipped by the defensive and special teams. I think the defense and special teams are the only people that scored for the Bears last week. We saw some back and forth, some last minute field goals. We got to see Matthew Stafford do wheel and deal. So I feel like a lot of the star quarterbacks kind of showed out, and then everybody else was kind of like everybody else. You kind of see why some people honestly are like, let's go after the quarterback. Let's go after the quarterbacks. But was there any team that you guys were particularly impressed by from week one, or any player?
I mean, for me, I guess I could say the Bucks. I mean, I know they played the Commanders, but I mean, they just continued from what they was doing last year. They went in a playoff run, beat my team first round. They actually played a good game against the Lions, could have won that game. And I mean, Baker Mayfield showing that Baker Mayfield showing that he belonged. He might actually find him a team to settle on. It looks kind of crazy on Cleveland now. Let him go. But that's that. But I was impressed by the Bucks to be able to continue offensively. Mike Evans still putting in work. Probably one of the most underappreciated receivers in the league. But yeah.
Should I go to low hanging fruit and say the Patriots? But I'm gonna go with the Vikings actually. I like how they didn't play around with the food in this game. They had a mission they had a game plan. They pretty much did it down to a T. Sam Darnold looked like a legit quarterback, looked like one of the best quarterbacks of the weekend, which is wild, but not surprising with who their coach is. So I got to give credit to that defense as well. I mean, it is the Giants, like Chris said, was Commanders. So we'll see how they are like in the rest of the season. And we all didn't expect the Giants to be too good, but they still look good regardless. That defense looks very solid with their pressure. They were able to get Justin Jefferson going, which is huge, at least with a touchdown. And I kind of like the Vikings. The Vikings are, what they say, sneaky. They're a little sneaky. What about you, Shaq?
Vikings are definitely up there. Bucks definitely up there. Vikings, it kind of makes me sad because, like I said, when we did our awards previews, if JJ McCarthy didn't get hurt, I mean, that may have been my team. I would have definitely had the Vikings making the playoffs. I think that, giving their head coach a little bit more credit than he has been given, and then also having Brian Flores. I mean, the defense clearly had Daniel Jones, which isn't necessarily saying much, but Brian Daboll is still a good offensive play caller. I mean, Brian Flores clearly undressed them and kind of did whatever he wanted to.
Man, but Andrew Van Ginkel, nigga.
Yeah, facts. Getting a pick six, but I'm gonna have to go with the Saints. Obviously, I said that, and I still think that it's a possibility that they would probably be the one of two teams that were going to be a trade deadline candidate come mid-season, and to come out in the first game and put up damn near 50 points, drubbing of the Carolina Panthers. And it's nice. It's interesting to see because they'll play the Cowboys this week, and I know a lot of people don't think the Panthers are good. So, there's some stock people don't, will put in that game, and then there, other people will just kind of chop it up as them going against the worst team in the league last year. But Kubi successful like it was in week one. I mean, that could be a team to be reckoned with, like I thought last year, and they went to prove me wrong pretty quickly. But we'll see what those red zone wolves come back and start popping up for Derek Carr.
We get to see it immediately. But that's a tough game at Dallas, so we get to see it immediately. What they about?
Get to see it immediately, and I want to say that Derek Carr, he typically plays pretty well against the Cowboys, so it'll be interesting to see. On the flip side of that, were there any teams or players that you were like, all right, you're on the hot seat now?
I mean, it's tough because again, I don't want to overreact on the week one, but shit, fuck it, my goddamn team. I mean, I just don't like the decision making by Jalen Hurts. I mean, you got this reporter that was clamoring about the whole no interceptions all training camp, and you come away and it's not like it'd be one thing if it was like, oh man, that was a great play by the DB. Nah, man, those 2 picks he threw. Matter of fact, it was going to be 4 because Rashawn Nixon dropped one, and AJ Brown actually came back and knocked it out of Jair hands, so it would have been 4. So that's the decision making by Jalen Hurts. Did not like it. Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, it was tough to watch. Luckily, I was able to pull it out regardless. But it was tough to watch that decision making. You would expect a little bit more. But
Right.
you know, tough environment, tough field. I don't know what was going through his head, but that was a bad field to play on too. Like that was ugly. But I'm kind of going in your same sentiment, Chris. I gotta go with the Falcons. I can't. And like you said, I don't want to overreact, but same kind of negative stat line as Jalen Hurts. 2 picks, had a fumble. Look, this was. I don't think it is exaggerating to say this. This was one of the worst play called games that I've ever seen offensively. And this is coming from, and this is a little bit of my worry. I talked about this too when we talked about like preseason and new coordinators. This is a brand new coordinator, Zach Robinson. I've never seen such a predictable play call as this. I know, Shai, you went and watched it over too. You watched all 22 of it. Mm-hmm. When you give a defense like Pittsburgh keys to what you're doing, when they know that every time you're in shotgun, we're going right at your ass, and the offensive line couldn't do shit about it. The offensive play calling didn't do nothing to help the offensive line. When you're in pistol, 8 times out of 10 you were running the ball. You just got to figure out which side, and most of the time they were running just away from TJ Watt. So you knew exactly what was coming. It was a very, very elementary style offense that I've never seen on the NFL level. Honestly, I cannot remember if I've ever seen that before. It was very disappointing to see from Zach Robinson, who I had a lot of hope in, and then also Kirk Cousins, who is a 13-year veteran in this league, making simple mistakes, getting like scattered, just getting scared back there in the pocket, just throwing up lollipops over the middle. It was ugly. Yeah, that's not what you want to see. That's not what you want to see after all that happening in the offseason. And of course, the narratives that are coming from it, which we can't escape.
Yeah. And kind of like you mentioned, I mean, Jalen Hurts, like you said, it is good to have that game and a win, especially against a team like the Packers. And I'm not going to go this route, but it is a little bit of a disappointment to see that Jordan Love did get hurt, even though they're trying to keep the door open that he's going to come back and play this week. He's not. I don't, even if he does, it would be an incredibly unwise decision, in my opinion. But, and then the Falcons, we'll get into that a little bit later as we talk about the Monday night game. But for me, it wasn't that much of a disappointment because, I wasn't personally surprised by it. But, it was the ugliness of it, especially with Justin Fields being the starter as opposed to Russell Wilson, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But I actually have to say I would say 2 teams, a lot of people have kind of talked about it, but the AFC South has, obviously 4 young quarterbacks, 4 teams that feel like, it's in a division right now that's kind of in flux where there's not anybody that's really dominant. I would say that the 2 teams that played each other probably are coming away this week like feeling a little. The Texans, obviously, they're 1-0. They should feel a little bit good about themselves. The Colts obviously had their quarterback play for the entire game, and he had some good returns as well. So they should feel a little bit positive about themselves. But the Tennessee Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars, I mean, for anything that you could have possibly thought about Will Levis for that game for you to go against a quarterback that threw 40 times and only had 90 yards passing, and you guys lost that game in a game where you dominated defensively, and you your quarterback throws a pick 6 and ends up on the maybe arguably the saddest picture of the year, probably with him on his knees as he's watching him take the pick 6 back. I mean, for all the things that the Titans have invested into that team, to see that off week 1 with your starting quarterback and hopeful franchise quarterback, I mean, it's got to be – it ain't great.
That's a bad
and then Jacksonville, I mean, to be up 17-7, about to go up 24-7, and then you fumble on the 1-yard line that ends up rolling into the end zone, and then not putting up another point. and losing in that fashion against a Miami Dolphins team that last week I picked the Jacksonville Jaguars to win because I felt the Miami Dolphins couldn't, struggled against those quote unquote good teams and had to prove that. And for you to lose like that against that team, given everything that happened during the day with Tyreek Hill, I don't want to get too much into it because I mean it's not for us. It's the norm more than I would say it is something that's surprising or anything like that. That's something that we see as black men all the time. I've had friends that it's happened to. I've never personally had that happen to me myself, but it's the whole Tyreek Hill incident with the cops and getting arrested before the game. If any reason that you should put your foot on somebody's necks, that would be the game. And Jacksonville has to be feeling like, hey, there's Doug Peterson's probably going to be out at the end of the season, especially if they don't make the playoffs. So I would say those two teams have to come away pretty disappointed, with their returns from week one.
I agree with that 100%.
I can agree with that, especially the Titans one. I think the Jags, Miami's supposedly a good team, and not to put up points after half is crazy. But I mean, my God, Tennessee. I mean, Will Levis, the game is won. It's in your hands. Like your defense is doing what the hell they need to do, and they didn't stop doing what they needed to do. They kept doing what they needed to do, and you you can't do that. And I was just watching the game, and it was like after they got up, it was almost like he just didn't know what else to do. Like they was going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Then you just threw it, just whatever, fuck it. Like you can't do
very Carson Wentz play.
You can't do that, and that's like that is very bad. That is terrible. Like I don't know.
With what they surrounded,
basically saying, go ahead.
With what they surrounded him with, you just have to not lose the game. You cannot go out and throw 2 picks if you're Will Levis. Like your stat line even before that, you only had 120 something yards passing. That was cool. You just got to be a game manager. You're still young. Get the feel of it. You just can't lose the game. You cannot make those decisions. It's very disappointing, and that's one of the ones where you're surrounded by a lot of veterans on that squad, and that will have to turn and looking at you like, you know what I mean? Like especially that defense. A lot of veterans on that defense now, and they're turning around and they're like, man, we doing all this shit just for him to sell it away. Like, this shit could build up throughout the season. So you got to get ahead of that and just not mess it up. I mean, both those teams had 14-point leads. It's very disappointing for both those squads. They had the game. They had control of the game. They had the tempo. They had it. They had time possession. They had it. And they just sold it away very quickly. So that is disappointing for both of those teams.
And it's very disappointing and very tough. And and the thing about the Will Levis stuff is it's like, if he does not pan out, do you have a good enough team where you're never going to crater and now you have to try to mortgage assets to possibly try to get up? And it just gets really hairy, and they need him to pan out, and for the coach to come after your very first week and saying we could have just punted on first down every play and we would have won that game. It's not a ringing endorsement of their young quarterback, especially given that he didn't draft him. The GM did, so he does. Rand does have some skin in the game there, but if the coach wants his own quarterback and wants to get his own guy, I mean that's the risk that you run. And to piggyback on Jacksonville, I would say, I mean, between them and the team that they play this upcoming week in the Cleveland Browns, and then probably another team in the Browns division in Cincinnati, those 3 teams are probably, of anybody, must wins. Very, very much must wins. Definitely Cleveland and Jacksonville. I mean, that whoever loses that game, I mean, there's going to be a lot of questions, and especially with Deshaun Watson. I mean, golly, how it looked like he started trying to. He clearly, and you want to give him a little grace. Just speaking about Deshaun Watson, the football player. His dad died earlier in the week. Friend died, like a day or 2 before the game. So I can understand maybe, if that's something that's affecting him. Now you have a new lawsuit that's come out that's even worse than which is saying something when you were being sued by like over 40 people.
Oh yeah, boy. Yeah.
You know, or at least maybe not over 40 people, but at least 40 names have come out, or 40 people have been implicated with you, bro. Like, so it's looking dark for him, and it's looking dark for his future, not only with the Browns, but just in the NFL in general. So I mean, you know, they say winning cures everything, and I don't know if there's really anything that he can do to kind of quiet the noise around him. But there's probably no two teams that need to win more than Jacksonville and Cleveland. And then, you know, like I said, we'll get into Cincinnati when we get into our game picks as well. But yeah, man, it was great. It's great to finally have football back. Finally watch all the games, even though they were a little rusty. Got a lot of highlights. I would say that we missed out on in having Indy and Houston in a primetime game. I feel like that game kind of deserves its own primetime game moving forward with two young – I mean, they've put together – I don't want to say classics, but with the ending of last season and the opening to this season, and with how Anthony Richardson looks, if he can continue holding up his end of the bargain versus CJ, that's definitely something that in the future the league needs to go ahead and start looking at primetime games for them.
They definitely, I think they dropped the ball on that too. You kind of want to, and honestly, I mean, you just gotta be honest about it. These first couple of weeks is when you should have scheduled that primetime game for the Colts, to be honest with you. So you know that you have AR there, you know, like, to get some eyes on them. I mean, because you really don't know what's going to happen.
Right, hold on. We got to stop
what
this.
You mean? We got to look at the history. We got to look at the history.
We got to cut this out.
We got to look at the history.
He got hurt. He got hurt in a freak accident. Like, it is okay.
He got hurt
a
couple times.
There's so many people. No, he got hurt in a freak accident. It is okay. He's not an injury-prone guy.
I didn't say
it's
that.
Not every time that he walks on the court, the field. Like, we don't have to put a qualifier for Anthony Richardson for every single time he does something.
I just want you to know that.
I'm just saying.
We do not need to put a qualifier.
I'm just saying, smart to do it early.
But injuries, and I'm glad that you went that way, because, and I guess we can kind of segue this into a little bit of our game picks as well. I would say another one of the takeaways is, especially for the Falcons, enough with this. We need to not play our guys to reduce injuries and mitigate injuries in the preseason. And then all of your guys start getting hurt week one. Okay, like, it's dumb. And then you look like how you look. It's dumb. It's dumb. Guys, it's silly. Get them in the game. I mean, it never made sense. You could say that the Falcons clearly could have used that preseason time, because there's questions just all over. The Rams, obviously, Matt Stafford played excellent, but I mean, you only put up 20 points and you went to overtime, and really that last touch, or you only scored in the second half, or the last couple plays came in the second half. Like,
and they got four players.
Don't think that
injured.
It might have been helped out a little bit. And then you had four starters, including Puka Nacua, who's a young player, that's out either on IR, out for the season, or IR designated to return. So
yeah, I thought Philly in there, not even the turnover. It's the, one of his turnovers was a bad snap because he wasn't paid. They not on the same page. They fumbled another snap that Saquon Barkley was able to get. I mean, and it was another time he snapped it early because he thought a defender got off sides and people weren't paying attention. So it's stuff like that. It's like, you got a new center quarterback. That's a delicate exchange. Like, that is that's one of the most important things in the game. Like, it's stuff like that. Yeah. It's like,
that's what made me hot shot about Raheem Morris's press conference that got me hot, because he said that his words were, even if the starters did play, they would have played like 10 snaps or whatever. They would have played a drive. That's like, can we please go back to where we play multiple preseason games and play these guys in the halftime for one of them and get ready for the season? I don't understand. Like, I try not to push back, because that's clearly just the way like the league's going. So I mean, you got to kind of live with it. But it's so evident that these guys are not ready for contact. You know what I mean? Just in the flow of the game, it's so evident. And to waste a week,
the back-to-back champion, going through their preseason and playing all their starters, and they come out and they immediately look like the best team in the league. Obviously, it's Patrick Mahomes too, but you could say the same thing for San Fran. They played their starters, the starters that were there. And did anybody look better than San Fran or Kansas City this past week?
And then you got teams that say, joint practices, but again, you got to throw the caveat in there. The quarterback still got the red jersey on, so I mean,
those shits are scripted.
That don't change it.
I'm not going with that joint practice shit.
Like, no, bro. Your quarterback still got the red jersey on. That shit is not really live for him, so he can do whatever he want. He can sit there in the pocket if he want and act like he ain't worried about the rush because you ain't supposed to tackle him. So it's like, nah, y'all need at least a quarter.
And both the Texans and Colts played their starters, and those were two of the better offenses in the league, or two of the better offenses in the league during Week 1 as well. So I mean, that's
what kind of had me disappointed about the Panthers too. Because they did play their starters only for one drive in the last preseason game.
Drive.
That's not enough. That's not it. Especially to come out looking like that against the Saints. That is not it. That's not what you want to see. And that got Panthers fans. We seen the video, Chris. That got Panthers fans hot. You know what I mean? Like you come out, you think you ready. You play one drive that really should have ended. I don't know if y'all watched that preseason game, but that drive should have ended early, but it got prolonged by a penalty. And then just it. That's crazy. It's crazy to me how you feel like one drive in the preseason or no play in the preseason at all, especially for young quarterbacks in new systems, new teams. But I got my soapbox. That shit's crazy.
And that's another player. Speaking of the Panthers, Bryce Young, you're on the hot seat, man. You already got people calling for your name. It is only year 2, but you already got fans starting to turn on you. And the offensive line played well. The offensive line played well in Week 1. That's about the only thing that played well for them. So giving him a little bit of grace. It's first game, and you want to give everybody a little bit of grace. It is the first game of the season. But it's a small grace. Like it's a small grace for everybody, but with the offensive line playing well, that you should hope that his play becomes a little bit better. But things just got out of hand really quickly, and I mean that's just one of those that you just bury the tape and keep it pushing. But you're on the hot seat, brother. So you're right. You're right. But man, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the game picks. I think everybody can say Cass had a great week last week, but everybody else,
Cass ain't fucking with us with the parlay, but it's cool.
I'm telling you, I would never have a week like that ever again. 7 for 7.
Yeah,
I should put some money on that shit.
All favorites.
That's tough.
But yeah, man. Like you said, Cass went 7 of 7. We do got another, just because of the amount of good games that we have this week. We do have another bonus pick with Kansas City and Cincinnati at the end. But starting off, we got a divisional game for Thursday Night Football. Buffalo versus Miami. I want to say that they were our last Sunday night game last year for the division, in which we saw Buffalo obviously win division last year, and obviously they blew them out the first game that they played last year as well. Buffalo coming off of a great win, Miami coming off of a great win as well, and maybe even possibly something that leads them to a little bit of a rallying cry with the Tyreek Hill arrest. Who you guys got and why?
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
I mean, both these teams are battling a little bit of injuries already, so that's not good on either side. Of course, we saw the news about Josh Allen. They say it's nothing. His hand is fine, but you don't have it wrapped up like it does. It's just fine. So we'll see. And then, of course, Raheem Mostert out for Miami. A-Chain is a game-time decision as of today. So that's a tough one to pick. Miami's at home. I'm going to go with Miami in this one. I'm not confident in it, though, but I'm gonna rock with it. I'm going to rock with them being at home. I think they need to get this win as well for themselves. For Miami.
Yeah, this is a tough one. But I'm going to go Buffalo. I just think that at this point, like you said, Cass, with the injuries, the running game is an integral part of their offense. I mean, I know they got a lot of running backs, but the focus you will say is Tyreek Hill and the speed on the outside, but they run the ball pretty heavily a lot of times. But I just think Buffalo, that team just got their number right now. I mean, their defense, they play well usually all year round. I mean, they got a good coach that coaches that defense well. And as long as Josh Allen I just don't want him to be Superman. Like, don't be trying to run over everybody in the world. Like, get down, my boy. Like, play another down. Like, but I am looking for I am looking forward for him to get his tight ends more involved. And if that's the case, I think they'll come on with the W.
Yeah, because what Kincaid didn't have any catches, did he?
No
I think he had
catches.
one for like 2 yards or something. He had something,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I think
But,
both of them had like
yeah,
one
man.
catch. Yeah, 2 targets.
And as you mentioned, the running backs are going to be key in this matchup, and with both of their top running backs being nicked, and possibly relying on Wright
And Jeffrey Wilson.
Who he seems that they love to keep him around. It seems like the Shanahan tree kind of just loves bouncing him back and forth. But I'm also going with Buffalo. They've got Miami's number, beating them. I think Miami's only won like once out of the last 10 games. Josh Allen played excellent in his first game without Stephon Diggs, who everybody is, feels like it's going to be a huge loss for them, for some reason. No disrespect to Stephon, but
yeah, for some reason.
we'll see. But Khalil Shakir, he played pretty well. Week 1, Keon Coleman played well in his rookie debut as well. So I expect that they will continue on with that. After the fumble and the first drive, the Bills were just kind of, they couldn't be stopped from there. So Miami's defense played pretty well against Jacksonville, but it's hard to tell if that's Jacksonville in their game plan and having Trevor Lawrence throw the ball like 4 times in the second half, or if that's actually just what Miami was doing. It was good to see Jalen Phillips out there. He got him a sack as well. So, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with Buffalo. Von Miller was excellent in the first game as well against Kyler and the Cardinals. So maybe that's a sign that he will keep that up. And, Greg Russo also got him a forced fumble sack. So I think that they will torment Tua, who does not seem to match up really well against the Buffalo Bills. They seem to continue to have a good game plan against him. So I'm rocking with the Bills.
All right. It should be a good one.
Yeah. So should be a good one, starting the season off or starting the week off with a divisional game, obviously getting to see 2 of the better quarterbacks in the league. Hopefully we can continue this trend of good primetime games, but the Sunday night football game could possibly be something to die for because based off the returns that we saw from Chicago, it might be a long season with that quarterback. But we'll see. It was only game 1, but preseason game 1, the returns haven't been as advertised, I'd say. But Houston, obviously, they had a really good week running the ball, which was not something I expected. I don't think really anybody expected for Joe Mixon to be leading the league in running after week 1. CJ Stroud played pretty well, had some pretty good passes to Nico Collins, who is seeming like he might be the Colts version of what T.Y. was to them, just kind of tormenting the Colts. It seems like every time he plays them, he gets 115 plus yards. But to the young quarterbacks that people are expecting to kind of be the next wave and kind of take over, Saturday Night Football, who you got and why?
Yeah, got the Texans, man. I mean, Caleb is still a rookie. I mean, I'm gonna try to temper my anguish against them because everybody believes that he's the best thing since sliced bread, and it's coming of Mahomes, and that performance week 1 was utterly atrocious. Again, like we already said, Will Levis won the game for the Bears, so I mean, he threw more touchdowns to the Bears than Caleb. But no, I'm looking forward to seeing CJ Stroud just continue to progress, and he put up good numbers against the Colts, a formidable, especially since that's the division opponent, to come out and win that game that jumpstart them to the right of this season. So I think I actually think they're gonna dominate, to be honest with you. I haven't seen enough from the Bears offense. I mean, I gotta see it. I don't believe it. I mean, you talking about running the ball, averaging 2.5 yards nah, that's not gonna cut that shit. That's not gonna cut it at all. So nah, I got the Texans.
It's unfortunate that the Bears are also going through. I mean, one of their receivers is already nicked. Roma Dunze has the MCL sprain. He's kind of week to week, so we don't know exactly if he's going to play or how he's going to be. And I think that's one of your best weapons for sure. I gotta see it too, Chris. I do like that defense. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I do like that defense. I said it, I said it I had him in the fucking playoffs. So I do respect that defense. It's funny that Callahan came out and said that because that's basically what the Bears did. They basically punted. They just punted and just gave it to their defense the rest of the game, and they ended up with a dub. So I'm gonna go with Houston in this one though. I think they do kind of just put them away early. Houston's at home. I don't think this should be a close game at all, but you never really know because I do respect that Bears defense, but I think it is at least a 10-point game with Houston at home win.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a good game, but it remains to be seen if just judging by what we've seen in preseason in the first game, it's going to take some time for Caleb to get going. I do think that it ends up I'm going with Houston as well, but I do think that it ends up being a close game, a close, low-scoring game, probably like a 17-10. Houston's defense obviously got ripped to shreds by Anthony Richardson last week. I mean, the Colts, I think, only had the ball in the second half for 6 minutes and scored 3 touchdowns, which, is for what people are saying about, Anthony Richardson being this inaccurate guy. If Caleb Williams can keep the offense on the field and not get dominated by Joe Mixon, on the defensive side, they should be able to keep it close. Jalen Johnson being able to match up with Nico Collins, throughout the entirety of the game, I think will help them a lot. Houston's O-line wasn't great, but the Colts cornerbacks wasn't really impacting them, so they were able to CJ was able to get the ball out quick, and I think that'll be a little bit different coming into this game. I think that the Bears will be a little bit more physical with the receivers and won't just kind of, it was a first game, so people didn't really know how to guard the Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, and Nico. With a little bit of film, I think the Bears will find a little bit more success there. But once again, I just think that Caleb, especially like you said, with Odunze being out, they've got to kind of get their offensive rhythm. And it doesn't appear that that's there yet.
Keenan hurt too, actually. Keenan Allen didn't practice.
Yeah, Keenan's nicked. I think he's going to play though. And so even if he doesn't, that's Keenan Allen. So
but he did not have a good game last week though. He dropped a couple of passes, dropped a touchdown pass.
Got big ones. Yeah.
So I'm gonna rock with Houston, and Chicago has a tough start. It's starting off 0-2. Luckily, Jordan Love is out, so you may be able to keep pace there, depending on how Malik Willis plays, if he starts, and then however long Jordan Love is out. But yeah, it could get dark in Chicago pretty quick. And if Caleb doesn't have a good rookie season, I'm not saying writing him off by any means, but there's going to be a lot of turmoil there in Chicago, in my opinion, especially given all of the hype and coming into the season. You have some people saying he's going to the Super Bowl, so hey, we'll see. We'll see on that one. But, keeping with the trend of the night games, this is the biggest game of the week. We've got the Falcons versus the Eagles. This is a little bit personal to y'all, so I'm going to go ahead and let y'all get into it before I unleash.
I'm obviously going to go with the Eagles, but it's going to be an interesting game. I'm looking at our defense. We did not generate any good pass rush against Brazil. In Brazil against the Packers. Not obviously, like Cass said earlier, the field was terrible. Everybody was slipping all over the place.
I've got some thoughts on that too.
I watched our DNs literally bend the corner and just slip and couldn't get back up. So I don't know what to think about that. I'm not going to say that they're trash or they're not good, but hey, I need to see some production. I'm not even trying to be funny, but we ain't got no TJ Watt, but your O-line cast was not looking good. No matter who it was, it could have been a guard, a center. Like they were getting interior pressure and it was getting edge pressure. So I'm looking at our defense. I'm not too worried about Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to fix those mistakes. Those were some uncharacteristic shit he did week 1. I mean, I hated it, but I don't think he's going to do that again. But I'm going rocking with the Eagles.
There were a lot of misconceptions about this offensive line. They even said it like during the broadcast. Of course, I don't think y'all were listening to it, but they even said like this offensive line is built more for pass protection and not run protection. Have you not been watching this team?
That.
Did you hear that shit?
Had the continuity too.
I'm like,
they say y'all brought back all 5 and y'all better at pass protection.
I'm like, come on, bro. Like, have you watched any of this team for the past 3 years? Anyway, but yeah, like I said, the play calling didn't do the offensive line any favors. Every single offensive lineman had over 2, maybe over 3 pressures allowed. Each of them, all 5 of them. That's never ever. That's never happened before. That's how you know that it's a play calling issue, very clearly. And I have to see something, honestly. I have to see it from Zach Robinson to know that he's a competent play caller in this league. I did not get anything from that game that made me like, all right, I kind of see what's going on here. Like nothing from that game gave me confidence. So, and this might be the only time I do this. Well, I'm picking against the Falcons for this one, and I'm gonna go with the Eagles. I think it's your home opener. It's a tough environment.
It is.
And look, I gotta be realistic at some point. And I hope that they do win. Don't get me wrong, obviously. But I don't see it. The defense looked all right. But that was also, like Shah said, against Justin Fields and that offense that don't really have a lot of things to kill you with. Like, of course, and one positive you can take away is they didn't let the Steelers reach the red zone until basically the 4th quarter, which is okay, cool. But at the same time, they were just running the ball. You know what I mean? Like every time they passed the ball, it seemed like they had decent success, which is crazy because you know what I mean. Like, and you're going against AJ Brown and Devontae Smith this week. And look, it can get ugly in Atlanta. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't have it. I don't want to get too far. I don't want to say what you say, Shai, but go ahead. Go ahead, and I'll go off of you.
So, man, this is going to be a fun game to watch, but I'm also going with the Eagles. Some positive returns from, some guys that we wanted. Obviously, Jalen Carter. He had a pretty good game in the first game. He was probably one of the only Eagles to as Chris mentioned, in terms of pressure, but one of the only Eagles to kind of consistently get some pressure, even though he got into little skirmishes there. But Nolan Smith in limited pass rush reps also performed pretty well. So that is a positive for the Eagles, especially given that they just drafted him last year within their first round pick. But Falcons, it's looking dark, man. I talked about it in our in our preview about the Falcons. There a lot of the players in terms of their names, people that I liked and people that I thought that could definitely make an impact. But I said at the top of the show I wasn't super surprised by the game this past weekend because in my opinion it's not too often. I always found it weird that, and I also said this in another one of our preview shows where I said, a lot of people don't really care about the NFC South. You never will hear too often where a team is overwhelmingly picked to be the favorites or division winner when you have a brand new head coach, a quarterback that's 36 years old coming off an Achilles injury, a season-ending injury. You got 2 brand new play callers, not even just new play callers, but brand new first-time play callers. You're probably 2 of your 4 most important, or you're really 3 of your 4, or 2 of your 4 most important players on defense are both coming off of season-ending injuries, and Grady Jarrett and Matthew Judon. Matthew Judon was non-existent in that first game. I know he got a sack, but if you go and watch how he got the sack, he didn't win that pass rush rep. But Falcons, once again, 20%. I think they only had 20% of their snaps or their pass rush snaps with a pressure, which was, I think, 4th lowest in the league this past week. And I don't see, with as good as the Eagles' offense or offensive line is, I just don't see that changing for them. So it's with the Kansas City Chiefs coming up next week, it's gonna be a lot of questions, and it's gonna be a lot of talk about Michael Penix, and maybe even rightfully so. Given we'll see how Kirk Cousins plays, but it's this a lot of people said the Falcons had an easy schedule, but to start the season off like this, it's not really there wasn't really a get right game in my opinion. And I guess except for the Steelers, or the Steelers being your get right game, and we saw the returns from that. So I just don't, kind of like last week, I feel like the Eagles are just too talented to lose against this team. But we shall see. But I'm rocking with the Eagles, and I think the Eagles get it in a 10-point win.
Completely fair. I still think they can win division, but this early stretch, you don't want to go 0-3, and I think they are going to go 0-3. It's very possible. If they do not win this game, well, I don't know. We'll see how the division games go.
You saying they guaranteed to lose the Chiefs?
I'm picking them to win, but they probably will lose. Spoiler alert: I'm picking them to win against the Chiefs at home.
Yes. We shall see. We shall see. We're definitely gonna need to see some more. Grady Jarrett had a decent game.
He did.
For his first
that
game back, but Matthew Judon, first of all, they got to get a plan, because, I get it. He's an outside linebacker. He's a 3-4 outside linebacker. He shouldn't be dropping into coverage as much as he was. At least I didn't sit there and count it each game or each play that he dropped in coverage. But there was a few plays that I'm like, all right, bro, like let's be for real here. It's Justin Fields. Like, you don't need like, just get after him. And then in his pass rush reps, he was on the ground a lot. I'll say that. But, there was a lot of players on the ground because of these surface issues. But we'll get into that after these picks. But moving to the team that the Falcons see week 4, that's coming off, maybe arguably, you can argue that they were probably the best looking team over the past weekend. The New Orleans Saints versus the Dallas Cowboys. We got a last second Dak contract signing, which we didn't talk too much about, but Dak obviously became the highest paid quarterback on Sunday, roughly a couple hours before the game started. And they had a really good game against the Cleveland Browns. We already talked about how the Saints dominated the Carolina Panthers. But, this is a big game for both of them. So I'm interested to see who you guys got and why.
Look, I'm gonna go with Dallas, even though I really don't want to, and I'm going with them solely because I gotta see it with New Orleans Saints. They had a dominant first game. They for sure did, but they're just still not a good team to me. I just think they just went against a Panther team that's still trying to find themselves, trying to find what they do good. And then Dallas at home. We've seen the record at home. They for the past few years, they just dominate at home. They usually don't lose, although they did lose in the playoffs at home. Normally in the regular season at home, they're very, very dominant. They did dominate Cleveland last week. I picked them to lose last week, but their defense showed up. They still haven't missed a step. It was some, bad throws here and there by Dak, but for the most part, he was decent in the game. So I still think it's gonna be close. I actually think it's gonna be on the lower side. I don't think it's gonna be no fireworks or nothing like that. Maybe like a 21-17 type of game.
I got kind of opposite. I think this game can get ugly, and I think this is one that can spiral pretty quickly. You had to like what you see, like you saw from New Orleans. You got to like what you saw from Derek Carr. But like you said, Shad, this is one of his best games probably as a Saint, and you didn't even have your top receiver involved. So it's very interesting, just the process of how you got there. Because Chris Olave had 2 catches or something like that. It's like
2 catches. Mm-hmm.
You got to get him involved. You got to, like, even in a blowout, you gotta do more there. And then of course Shaheed had a big game. Alvin Kamara, of course, but I think this Dallas defense will. I think they're more sound. They're more disciplined than what we saw last week from the Panthers defense. And they just got better athletes on that side of the ball. So and it's tough for me to, like, I understand New Orleans defense is good. But it's tough for me to not pick Dallas at home. Honestly, it really is. So I'm gonna go Dallas.
Okay. So, I'm kind of inclined to pick the Saints because I feel like that every season there's a team like the Washington Commanders last year that starts off like 3-0, 4-0, and you're just like, what's really going on here? But I'm also going with Dallas. I think I I doubted them last week. I doubted them last year in terms of them missing the playoffs. But I, I liked what I saw from the defense. The offense was still, I think there's a lot of issues that were going on or going to be going on in Cleveland. And, we talked about it. I think, there's always that one year with Jim Schwartz where it's just like, bro, what the fuck is going
What the
on?
fuck going on? Yeah.
And so it just always seems like it's just one. He'll be dominant for a couple of years, and then there's just one year. It's like, bro, I don't know what this is, and that could be that year this year for the Cleveland Browns. And so
Already got
I
injuries
don't want
over
to
there.
put too much stock. Yeah, and I don't want to put too much stock in that win, but I just think that Dallas, they're finally able to get from under the Dak stuff and the CD stuff. We will have to see how their running game looks. Zeke looked all right. He looked pretty good for a first game, back, but we'll see how the season goes along. I do think that the Saints will be able to actually run the ball and commit to the run, and as well, Derek Carr is not a bad quarterback. He's just a quarterback. It's just like it's like something's missing. He's like at like 99% to being like a great quarterback, and he just can't get that past. He just can't get that last 1%, and it keeps him there. He's just like squarely in the middle of quarterbacks for me. And I think that continues. I think it'll be a close game where maybe we get a Derek Carr maybe fumble or sack at the end to lose the game. But I'm going with the Cowboys in a really good game, early season game.
And just to piggyback on what you said, I mean, that's kind of the reason why I picked the Browns last week is because I thought they was going to commit to the run. They for sure did not commit to that damn run. I know they don't have Nick Chubb, but Jerome Ford did. He did good last year in replacing Nick Chubb. But I feel like if they would have committed more to the run, they could have probably found a little bit more success. I mean, you got Deshaun Watson throwing 45 times, kind of crazy at this juncture anyway.
Man, it was looking crazy.
It was looking bad.
Some of them throws was going to the moon, boy. Yeah. But man, sticking in the division, Tampa Bay's got what a great first game. And the first thing that popped in my mind when I saw that, I got the alert that Mike Evans got another touchdown from Baker. I'm like, damn, I should have picked the Bucs like I really wanted to, but to win the division. But Bucs versus the Lions, rematch in the playoffs. The Lions obviously coming off of a really, really tough, good win in overtime versus the Rams. But they weren't great. They slick kind of got outplayed by the Rams. The Rams are, I don't know how they ended up losing that game for real, but Jameson Williams finally having his breakout game. Baker continuing to do the great stuff that he does. Who you guys got and why?
Who's at home?
Detroit.
I was gonna go with them anyway, but I'm going with Detroit. I just think I like what I saw from the Bucs, but again, I just think that with Detroit actually playing against the Rams, that put them in a position to they played a good game. It wasn't a blowout. They had to experience ups and downs in the game. They even went into overtime, and so I think that spring is going to springboard them to having a good season. And I just think the Bucs, I mean, they're coming off a good win, but again, we're talking about the Commanders. They're not really a good team at this point, so I'm gonna rock with Detroit.
Okay. Yeah, like you said, rematch of the divisional round of playoffs this year. This past season, I think the game will kind of go how it went in that playoff game. To be honest with you, I think it's gonna come down to like one of those like crucial mistakes on the last drive that could end up, a turnover of some kind that will seal the game for Detroit. But I got Detroit at home in this one. I'm expecting a good game though. I think this will be a back and forth game. I like both these teams. I like what they did last week. Like you said, like the Rams really should have won that game. But at the same time, you do like that they stuck it out and they went into overtime and just like ran it down there. Like Like that was one of the best overtime drives that you will see from a team. Like that is domination. There's like, all right, we shouldn't be here. We're gonna get rid of these guys quick. So you do like to see that.
It honestly kind of seemed like it was like a playoff game. Like you just kept looking at the Rams sideline, and you could just look like, bro, like it's over with. I don't think a single person looked like, yo, we're gonna stop them. Like they all knew as soon as. So I want to say as soon as Goff called I think it was Stafford actually that called the coin toss, and Goff saw that it was they were gonna get the ball. That boy ran off so quick. He like, yeah, it's over with.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
He turned right back around. He said, I forgot to shake his hand. Shit.
That was good to see if you're a Detroit fan. The team looks good. And, of course, I had them finishing first in the NFC this year. So I'm going to pick Detroit whenever I can. So I'm going to go Detroit.
Okay. I'm rocking with the Detroit as well. Not too many differences here. Tampa Bay, great start to the season. They did see a young secondary over there with the Commanders, and obviously a team that has a lot of turnover over the past year for them. But they are beat up defensively. I think Antoine Winfield is going to miss this game as well. Kalijah Kancey was out last game. Who knows if he'll be in this game as well. And it's just I think they're too beat up to make some noise against Detroit, especially with that. With the offensive line that they got, and I think we see Amon-Ra St. Brown go crazy. I think he went. I want to say because they played in the regular season as well last year. I want to say he went crazy against them in the regular season.
And the playoffs,
so I think
really,
that he ends up going crazy against them, and we might even see a second Jameson Williams, maybe 100-yard games for the first time back to back. So I'm rocking with the Detroit Lions, and I think that they win pretty handily just due to the injuries in Tampa Bay defensively. So, I would like to see Baker have another good game and kind of continue the streak, but I think that he's going to be carrying too much of the weight for them to come out victorious.
That's fair. We picking alike so far, except for that Miami game.
Yeah, so far, except for the first one. But I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's week one. We only have one week to have seen everything, and then, like you said, with some of these teams being beat up, like Tampa Bay, like some of the injuries that Miami's facing, as well for their two starting running backs, their two star running backs. It's kind of tough to pick again or pick for them, knowing that that's going to be the case, but. This one, I feel like we might have some difference of opinions here, but maybe not after what we saw week one. Jacksonville versus Cleveland. I think this is probably the most important game on the schedule just for all parties involved. Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, he needs, not to say that he played bad or anything like that, but I mean, he needs a I am Trevor Lawrence, like I'm that dude game bad. I think Doug Peterson, he needs a game where he's calling a great game bad. Deshaun Watson, and obviously Trevor Lawrence followed Deshaun Watson at Clemson as well, so there's some storyline there. Two of the greatest quarterbacks to ever be at Clemson, two champions at Clemson, two guys that are kind of, I don't want to say Trevor is at a crossroads in his career because obviously he just signed a contract extension. But, he's definitely at a crossroads where people are going to start being like, yo, like, we gave you grace. Like, we gave you the Urban Meyer grace. We gave you grace because you were highly touted. But that grace period is done. That grace period was done last year. And now, after the first game, it's those questions are going to start coming that I had already. And then Deshaun Watson, I mean, I don't even think we need to even discuss the questions that people have had against him, both professionally and personally. For his football character, for his personal character, for his football playing ability. You even got people saying that Bill O'Brien is underrated now. So, he needs a game bad. And I mean, I imagine that with the new allegations coming out, I mean, how do you even look at the man in the locker room as a leader or anything like that?
My thing, yes.
And in the press conferences since, I mean, from the day that he came to Cleveland have not been good. You don't really see them too often publicly broadcasted, and for good reason, probably. So, I mean, he needs it. He needs it bad, especially with Baker. How does that happen? And then Baker, especially if Baker has another good game, like Baker's continued success while Deshaun Watson is continually regressing, something to watch. So, who do you guys have winning and why?
He definitely needs a game, but he ain't getting that game. But I am going with the Browns, though. I think that, Kevin Stefanski is a good coach. And I feel like, if you watch the game from last week,
Two-time
he
coach
is
of
a
the
good
year.
coach. I don't care what you're talking about. Hey,
With some
you gotta
respect on
tell
his
him.
name.
But, I mean, if you look at the game last week with Jacksonville, what Miami do in the second half? They ran the ball. I mean, get back to the damn running game. I mean, at this point, Deshaun Watson, you gotta limit. You can't throw 45 times. That's just nuts. But I feel like they can run the ball with some success against Jacksonville, and I think week one was just week one. I still think the Browns defense is good. I might be a homer because I fought with Jeff Schwartz, but I still think the Browns defense is good. But I'm gonna go with the Browns.
I do agree with you that Deshaun does need that game. I don't think he gets it though. I think Jacksonville needs this game a little bit more. After this game, they're on the road against Buffalo and Houston. Then they have a home game against Indianapolis. If you lose this game, it's very possible you could start 0-5. And then what? Who knows what's going to happen
The
after
Colts
that?
got to prove they can win in Jacksonville. That's their.
Who knows what's if you're 0-4 at that point? If you're Jacksonville, shit might be really wrong. That's what I'm saying. But no, I think they do need this game just to get on track, get the taste out of their mouth from what they should have had was a big win versus Miami. And the Cleveland, like the defense, like you said, maybe the defense bounces back. It wasn't very encouraging though, to be honest with you. It really wasn't. They lost their starting safety, one Thornhill. They got some other injuries. They feel like they always have injuries on the O line. So I mean, it's a little rough for Cleveland. I think it's gonna be a long season for them. And it's gonna get a little ugly. So yeah. I got Jacksonville.
It definitely could get a little ugly. And earlier when I was talking about the Falcons, the stat I brought up was that they were one of the worst teams in the amount of pass rush snaps with the pressure at 20%. The worst was Jacksonville, and the third worst was Cleveland. So, which is saying something about Cleveland, considering that Myles Garrett is over there, and the guys that they have over there. So, that is a very disappointing number for Jacksonville, especially considering they played pretty well defensively against Miami and definitely limited the explosives. But for you to just paid, Hines Allen, and then drafted Trayvon Walker with your number one overall pick, it's not a great sign that you haven't been able to generate a consistent pass rush from that position. And then Cleveland, I mean, like I said, with Myles Garrett there, I mean, it should never be that low. So it's tough. I mean, they're two teams that are really in the same position, and it could get real dark. But being that it is in Jacksonville, I'm going to go ahead and go with the home team. Just given that Cleveland, the more Deshaun Watson news coming out this week, there's gonna be more questions. Kevin Stefanski already kind of tried to duck some of it. There has been some reports that it wasn't Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry that wanted him, the GM, because there has been a lot of talk about how they've kind of handled press conferences with them and how they've kind of ducked it and been able to successfully do that. Now that there is a new allegation that's actually a sexual assault allegation that's a little bit more egregious than the previous ones, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that. And there's been reports that they didn't want him, and that was more of a Haslam thing that pushed Deshaun Watson on them. So, it remains to be seen. It's going to be interesting. And you guys saying Kevin Stefanski's a good coach, I'm not saying that he's not, but it's not a great look that you were sticking your neck out as far as you were to downplay and talk all this stuff about Baker Mayfield, and lo and behold, he gets another team to the playoffs. People don't put Baker in that upper echelon of quarterback, but I really think that you have to credit the man for being able to bring Cleveland to the playoffs. After all of the, the 1-15 or whatever, 0-16 that they were, winning one game, I think, in 2 years. And then, getting cast aside and then following behind Tom Brady. I am so impressed by that because there's not a lot of guys that want to follow all-time greats like that. That's why I'm impressed by Jordan Love. That's why I think Andrew Luck was impressive to follow all-time greats, even Aaron Rodgers. To do that, to do it gracefully and to still be good, knowing that people are going to be like, oh, it's not like Tom or it's not like XYZ, I think is very impressive. So, I mean, I think that should be an indictment on him. You were so willing to push out this quarterback who's clearly good. Another person that has a little indictment on them, I talked about it before, but given the Deshaun Watson news again, we really need to start looking at that front office in Atlanta. I'm sorry, Kaz, I'm not trying to pile on, but the fact that Arthur Blank was so willing to shit on the best quarterback, the best player in the history of your franchise for Deshaun Watson.
We dodged a bullet for real.
It dodged a bullet, and I mean, God, given what was going to have to be given up, now the Falcons might not have pushed around money like the Browns have been doing, but I just can't get over that. And if I was Matt Ryan, Matt Ryan seems to love the Falcons still, and he seems to show up there all the time. But if I was Matt Ryan, I'd be like, bruh, y'all bugging, nigga. Like, yeah, I'm gonna say nigga too. Fuck.
I just think so much of that was owner pushed that, and he still has a great relationship with the owner. Matt Ryan does, so I think that's the reason why. I mean, I think a lot of that was owner pushed. Which, I mean,
that's
is what it is.
Arthur Blank, I mean,
it is interesting. I'm saying, like, I'm so
very
glad
interesting
because they have $172 million left on a cap hit.
It's the worst contract. Worst trade in the history of the NFL. Worst contract in the history of the NFL.
Goodness gracious.
I mean, I don't even think, to be honest, I don't even think a Super Bowl at this point could really change that. In my opinion. Like, unless he is like the MVP of the Super Bowl and just goes lights out. I really truly, it's really bad. It's really bad.
It's so bad. And yeah.
Moving to the two-time defending Super Bowl champion, the Kansas City Chiefs, coming off of a great win against the Baltimore Ravens, against the Cincinnati Bengals, their rival that everybody wants to get. Everybody loves the Bengals because of this specific game, them specifically beating the Chiefs, and really nothing else. So, I mean, this would be the game, if anything, for the Bengals to redeem themselves. Who you guys got and why?
It was. I mean, we did. Oh, go ahead.
No, you
said we didn't what?
We didn't really touch too much on the disappointing effort that they had on Sunday from the squad against the Patriots. Shout out to the Patriots though. Shout out to Gerard Mann for getting his first dub as a first time coach. But Cincinnati looked bad, man. They looked like, yeah, it was ugly. And if you look at the schedule as a whole going into it, but even before this game on Sunday, and I told you that 4 of their first 6 games are against the Patriots, the Washington Commanders, the Panthers, and the Giants. 4 of their first 6, you would think they should finally get off to a good start. You would think maybe, you know what I mean? And they go out and instantly shit that away. You got a Kansas City team at home. Kansas City is you really fucked up. You really fucked up, and you don't know, T. Higgins has his hamstring injury, which, as we know, hamstrings can linger. So you never really know if he'll be all the way right when that will happen. Jamar Chase did come back and play after his contract disputes, but didn't do much in that game. Is Joe Burrow hurt? We saw the video of him flexing his wrist a lot, and what's going on there? Is he cooked? I don't know. It does not look good. It does not look good at all for Cincinnati. That's kind of what I was worried about going into the season. And that game 1, I don't think it's an overreaction to say that they're in trouble after that one. All that to say, I'm going Kansas City for sure at home.
I mean, you said it best, Kaz. I mean, That was a piss poor performance by them week one. I mean, it was very bad. I understand the Patriots usually have a good defense. They have good defensive players, but I mean, it was terrible. But I'm gonna go with the Bengals though. I have no reason to do it. I need to catch up. Cavs went undefeated for week one, man. I gotta catch up, bro. I don't know. This is a bonus pick. I have no reason, but only reason I can lean on is they just play them tough every time. It's never an easy game by Kansas City any stretch of the imagination, whether it's playoffs or in the season. So I think Bengals. This is the game. It is all about showing some pride, man. Cause
that's really what it is.
The fuck was that?
I mean, you had Ramondre. We all know Ramondre Stevenson is a great football player. Don't get me wrong, but the man dropped 25 carries, 120 yards, running down your throat. It's like it wasn't a lot of pride on that defense or the offense. Like it was a little disconjointed. Who you got, Shop?
Yeah, man, and this. And things could have went a little different, obviously, if the Bengals didn't fumble on like the 1 yard line and stuff like that. But, Kansas City is a 5-point favorite at home, which you never would really see especially for a quote unquote superstar quarterback, going against a superstar quarterback. So, it's looking real dark. I mean, I think a lot of things are looking dark for Cincinnati, and that was a reason that I didn't pick them to go to the playoffs this year. There's been a lot of noise, from Trey Hendrickson to T. Higgins, and there are even people suggesting that T. Higgins isn't really hurt. He might have tweaked his hamstring, but he's not really. There's some people that probably think, hey, like he just doesn't have a contract. He's not about to come and risk it, and then that value go down. Which is why some people were like, why is Jamar Chase out there? Because it seemed like he wasn't going to do the same thing. But I don't know, maybe if his relationship with Joe Burrow decided he was like, yeah, I'm not going to leave my quarterback hanging out like that. But, there was clearly some frustration from him after the game and his post-game presser, which, I don't want to read too much into it. It's right after you lose your first game of the season.
Yeah.
There should be some frustration, but especially against a team that you didn't expect to lose to. But, and he kind of started off last season the same way, but people said it was the calf where he was throwing short. He wasn't really throwing beyond the sticks. He wasn't throwing, and it got better as a season. There's going to have to come a point where we stop giving him grace for the mediocre Super Bowl run. There's going to have to come a point where we stop giving him grace and chopping it up as, it's week one. They never play well week one. They never play well week two. So, like, there's got to be, because at the end of the day, like, you can't predict that Lamar Jackson is going to get hurt. If Lamar Jackson doesn't get hurt, you don't make the playoffs the first year that you guys go to the Super Bowl. So that's gone. If Lamar Jackson doesn't get hurt, you probably don't win that game. And with him hurt, you almost missed it. And then, no, it was back-to-back years. The back-to-back years Lamar got hurt was the first year that they went to the Super Bowl. The second year was the year he got hurt and Tyler Huntley played them in the playoffs.
That was second year, okay.
And what's his name had the fumble 6. Mm-hmm. And that was a game that you guys almost lost. So it's if he probably doesn't get hurt, the game is probably played in Baltimore, not in Cincinnati. And this is not you can't beat Lamar, you can't beat the Ravens. You struggle against the Browns as well and go back and forth with the Steelers. So it's looking dark for them. So I'm going with Kansas City, man. I'm going with Kansas City to kind of continue to do what they did in week one. I don't think that they will find as much success offensively, just given that it's been some more tape on them, some more tape on how they want to run things. But you know how it is, Andy Reid, with following a bye week. I'm pretty sure maybe he might only have one loss in his career, maybe two, with the Super Bowl loss, the second Super Bowl loss with Kansas City. But this is basically a mini bye week, so I think he's going to scheme them up, and their defense has been reeling over the past 2 seasons anyway, since really that last deep playoff run. And finally, they have a new offensive coordinator with Brian Callahan not being there. So I don't know, I already said, I don't know how good of a coach Zach Taylor truly is, or I tried to give the credit to Joe Burrow. But now I'm like, I don't know. Well, I don't know. We'll see. It's a lot of questions there, and that's somebody else that could be facing the hot seat, especially if they start off 0-2. So I'm rocking with the Kansas City Chiefs, and there's going to be. I'm interested to see the Monday morning conversation about the Bengals, especially given that Lamar Jackson got killed for having almost 400 total offense all to himself. But Joe Burrow, it's just been like, it's week one, you know. He doesn't play well week one. I'm very interested to see what the conversation will be like.
Again, I don't think they win. I just need to catch up. So it's that.
I mean, they could definitely win. You know, it's.
I mean, you never know.
Everything always seems doom and gloom until you finally get the dub. You know.
And this would be the type of game. This would be the type of game that put everybody back on Joe Burrow. You know what I mean? Even if you know what I mean, like it don't matter what he does the rest of the season. If he wins this game, it don't matter what he does the rest of the season. It's Joe Burrow. It's Joe Burrow.
They're gonna say he got Mahomes spooked. What?
Yeah, it's gonna be some crazy stuff. It's gonna be some crazy stuff come out if he wins this game too.
They were saying that man was Tom Brady-esque, and I love Joe Burrow. Don't get me wrong, but like, it's gotta be fair. At the end of the day, like, I don't understand why he's getting all these passes, but we want to kill Lamar Jackson, we want to kill Josh Allen, and you know, it just doesn't make too much sense to me. But, we shall see. But final thoughts before we hop off here, man. The surfaces, Jesus Christ, like everybody knows that the world, at least America, revolves around NFL football. You know when the season's fucking starting. What in the hell was that in Brazil? You know, the Colts put in a new grass as well that was supposed to be better, supposed to be performance. And lo and behold, you know, they probably played themselves because that was the only reason that Anthony Richardson threw that interception was because of a slip. He almost slipped in that crazy touchdown that he had.
Yeah. Crazy throw.
You know, it's just what's going on, man? It's week one. Why are we not taking care of the players, bro? What do y'all feel about that?
I think it's way too much money in the league.
But it's all about making money. It takes too much. It's too much money to spend on just converting it back to natural grass, which is why they use turf. And they keep saying, "Oh, it's performance enhancing turf," and it's like, bro, it's artificial, bro. It's not real. Like it's gonna have its issue. Like you even seen like it was like maybe a year or two ago. It was like a college game where you know it was a hole in the ground. They had to put the turf stuff back into. It was like, what the fuck is that? Like, well, how did that even happen? Yeah, I don't know.
The Eagles field was like coming up, bro.
Yeah, that shit was ugly. That shit was nasty.
You could clearly see like the squares in that bitch, like from the
They said if you got to sit there and show on the sidelines, y'all not medical, but y'all equipment team sitting there drilling in new spikes and stuff like that is ridiculous. That we're at this point and it's being publicized now. You have to do something about this. You know what I mean? This is what's coming on TV.
In non-weather games.
Facts. Bruh. It's like the first play of the game in Brazil. Saquon slips. Like, he just...
Yeah. A goofy slip, too.
That shit was... Yeah, like he hit a banana.
Yeah, really, that's what it looked like. I'm like, what the fuck?
And people can get hurt. I mean, all those slips, people hurting their groins, stuff like that, hurt hamstring, bro, tearing an ACL or something like that. I mean, who's to say that Jordan Love? I mean, because Jordan Love was a little hurt or like tweaked. I don't know if it was like a cramp in or a strain or something, but he was a little tweaked the whole game anyway.
Yeah.
And who's to say that it wasn't from that? And it was just so bad. Like, and between that and the refs, I really all weekend trying to be the main characters. I mean, we got to cut it. I get it. That's another reason why we need to start playing your starters during the season. Because the Ravens, I mean, geez, how many illegal formation calls are they going to have in a row? If you have your starters playing and getting used to that, so the refs can also practice during the preseason.
But you know, it's crazy because I think most teams do this, though. They have, even during training camp, they have hired refs there at their training camp practice. But I mean, they should be different. I get it.
That's the problem because it's not consistent. That's the main thing. Like you go from game, you literally watch game to game, and it's totally different calls for the same play. You know what I mean? Like for instance, like the offensive pass interference. No other ref. I feel like no other ref that ref on Sunday would have called that. but that ref that did in that Falcons game. You just don't. You have to be consistent. It's very, and that's what's annoying about it, because it's like, what are we teaching and what are we implementing for that to come still just different for every ref on Sundays? Like it's so bad. It's so bad. Like you said, main character syndrome is. We see that a lot. We see it more so in basketball.
Niggas was trying to be the main character so bad. I'm like, bro, it's not your game, bro. Like, you're not playing, bro. Like, once, bro, that first game, the Thursday night game, especially after we had already gotten a delay from the Lightning and stuff like that, it already kind of, for a second there, I'm sure everybody was like, damn, this game will get canceled or postponed. But after the delay, and it seemed like the first half was just like a ref fest. Like, it was, how many times can we call this same illegal formation? It's like, bro, all right, bro, like, I get it. Like, you done gave the man 2 flags. All right, you don't call that shit for the rest of the game. Like, talk to the nigga after the game. Talk to the nigga on the sideline or something, bro.
It feels like they used Thursday game for that, for a presentation, because last year we seen it. They was caught when they started calling the false starts that when you go. Mm-hmm. They was throwing hella flags on the Chiefs last year on Thursday, and this year it was all on the Ravens. Like, yeah, y'all, this is what y'all need to pay attention to. We calling this.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, you might be 100% right on that. Honestly, I can see that. So
we're here to stay. Ass refs, man. Like, god damn. But man, that gives us a wrap for another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast. We will catch y'all at following week 2, hoping for another great week in the league.
Let's go, Chris.
Sir.
Let's go. Later.